All right. Hey guys, this is Comedy Coalescence, and I am Brian.
I'm Chris.
And today we have Faustino Solis. He's the music director for Vegas Theater Hub in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he's currently hosting a online jam through Zoom called the Inner City Jam. And we had a great conversation with him, and we're excited for you to hear it.
Hey everybody, we're here with Faustino Solis. Hey Faustino, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Faustino Solis. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. Right now, I am a choir director at a church here, University United Methodist, across from UNLV. And then before the pandemic, I was also a freelancing improv musical director. I guess I still am now, but not having to carry all the equipment. Now it just lives right in front of me. And as of late, I've been running the Inner City Long Form Improv Jam, which has been a cool milestone for, I guess, everybody in the improv community.
Yeah, dude, it's a lifesaver. It's helped me keep my sanity during this quarantine. So thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
How'd you get that idea to do that?
Yeah, I just noticed. I noticed some theaters, especially I was paying attention to things happening in New York and Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
That right when everyone knew that everyone's gonna shut down, people had already used specifically Zoom. There were a couple of other ones that they were using, but they had a format down just to do long form improv. I was like, that's insane. And then all these they called themselves jams, are popping up here and there, but they were mostly drop-ins where it was one person leading a group of people, which is like a host, but they were giving feedback. So I didn't really think that was truly a jam in my mind. So I went back to what I know is the Thursday night Pittsburgh Improv Jam,
Yeah.
Which I'm very familiar with.
Awesome.
And took that format. I was like, hey, I know Vegas has shell hand, so I'm like, who else do I know across the country that would maybe be interested?
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to my buddy Ben Amiri, who runs that Pittsburgh Jam, and then my friend Drew from Buffalo, who have had with comedy sports. And I was like, okay, you guys want to just try this thing out? Let's just do a long form jam on Zoom. Some of us seen it already, some of us hadn't, and we just invited a bunch of people. Lucky because I was a traveling musician, I had access to a lot of the Facebook groups of different cities, so I just threw it out there. So it kind of looked like spam, and then we got a big net of people, and it's been consistent, I think at least 30 improvisers and growing each turnout, and it is, from what I've been told, is one of the largest in the country, or if not the world.
Yeah, I mean, you had somebody from Malaysia. Is that serious? Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I don't want to get too much detail into that one because we talked about this morning. We weren't sure if that person was really from Malaysia or he was just kidding, because I think Kuala Lumpur is the same time zone as Chicago, but inverse.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't know if that guy was kidding or not. His stage name, I think I can share that. His stage name is Rusty Bill from Malaysia. So I mean, take it with a grain of salt. If you guys know who he is, then
I've never met Rusty Bill here. So.
But the problem is, yeah, that's what the information's given us. But also, I don't know. We could put two and two together, but we also just don't want to we don't want to judge, but we can't help because we're human. But hey, a person from Malaysia, we're not gonna say no to that person. Why not?
Yeah, that's cool. So how did you meet all these people? Can you tell us a little bit about that? How you know people in LA and Buffalo and Pittsburgh and everywhere?
All right. Okay, so Buffalo specifically, because I'm from Buffalo. If you can see behind me, there is an oven mitt, and that is from the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
That I got from their hockey games. I grew up there, born and raised. Pittsburgh, because there's a program specifically at Carnegie Mellon that's specific to music, since I'm a music educator as well. I've been going there for about 3 summers in a row, 2 for extended 3 weeks. One of them I just kind of passed by. So while I'm in Pittsburgh doing that advanced study, I always checked out what the improv scene was there. Leading to that, even before I went to Pittsburgh for the first time, I just learned from like UCB LA. Like I just happened to be in the area with a couple of buddies, and I was like, I see something that says musical improv, and I just started improv like a few weeks ago. Like, hey, I want to see what this is. And it was, I think, a guest team like from the Magnet Theater in New York was in LA, like performing musical improv with an LA music director. At that time, also, like I just started playing piano, like very light. No, that was the first time. Like I saw that, and I was like, oh man, I didn't realize you can throw a piano behind improv. And I was like, I went to my own theater. I was like, hey, if I buy a piano, can I like play for you guys? Because I kind of know what they're doing. I said, sure. Fast forward like 6 or 7 months, and I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Because I'm kind of like figuring out on my own. So I called all the second cities. So that's LA, Chicago, Toronto. And I'm like, hey, how do I do this? And then instead of like giving me a straight answer, they just kind of deferred me to a resident music director. I took a bus from Vegas. And also, because I knew I had to go to Pittsburgh anyways, I took a bus from from Vegas to LA, like studied with an MD there, Huey Stonefish, who I guess is like one of the members of Lou Burger, if you follow BuzzFeed. He was their music director there, so I studied with him for a day or so. Then I decided I wanted to take a train ride because I had just graduated from college. Took a train ride from LA all the way to Chicago, stopping in Albuquerque and Kansas City just to like sightsee. Took a lesson with Amanda Murphy at Second City Chicago and met some beaters there. Took that train to Buffalo and then drove up for like 2 nights to Toronto to study with them. And then I was like, okay, now I gotta do this routes in Pittsburgh. Then I drove down to Pittsburgh. And then from there, because I'd established myself like, hey, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, is from there I just started like, people were finding out who I was. People were asking me to perform with them and like festivals. Like I offered to play free in Vegas, and like if I'm at a festival and someone was hiring me, I was like, they're hiring me, but I'm also willing just to play because I feel like it. And then from there on, it's like, now like I have a setting, like if I'll go to a city now and I go to improv theater, like, hey, it's Faustino, because I played for piano for them at some capacity.
Yeah, dude, oops, sorry.
I was just saying that's awesome. We've all heard of going on tour to deliver shows, but I've never heard of someone going on tour just to get improv education over a span of a couple of weeks. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
it's crazy because there's only like a handful of places where they'll train you as a piano player. A lot of cities, especially the smaller ones that's outside of like New York, Toronto, Boston, like some of the smaller ones, like Vegas is one of them. Like there aren't many of us around. So even in like those bigger cities, there's a demand for piano players. So it's like there was really nowhere for me to find out from like an expert until I had to like literally go out and find it myself.
That's so crazy, man. Like all the training from all over. I just assumed, well, the first time I met you, I just assumed that you were from Arcade in Move.
Oh.
But no, dude, you're like worldwide.
Yeah, Arcade was kind of like the guys who were mostly, like, not to disrespect any of, because I was more familiar with Arcade anyways. Actually, my first jam in Pittsburgh was Steel City.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the majority of people at the jam were Arcade.
Yeah.
So I went there, I bought a shirt, and I just happened to teach like 2 music workshops this past summer at Arcade. So that's why that's my favorite, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of my favorite jams out of any of the ones I've been to. Too, like Brian, it like kind of shits on the ones here. I hate to say it, but yeah.
I think like the crazy thing about Pittsburgh, and I even tried to model that one. Well, we modeled Inner City after Pittsburgh's, but I tried to also introduce it in Vegas. But part of it is they do a good job of like getting to know the improviser just as they're walking through the door. Like people who have been there for a while or people who are new, like they separate people by years of experience, and like they really balance out. So they're really like they also have like an air of like inclusion, safety, like have fun, like take care of each other, like just all the things that improv needs nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That it's you can't not leave there like not only having fun but just like feeling included, and that's why I'm so obsessed with the Pittsburgh improv scene.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Chicago.
No, it's the last jam I went to in Chicago. I'm not going to say where, but there was no introduction. we were just numbered, and then we hopped on stage. I was like, oh.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's nice to have a little bit of structure. Absolutely. So have you traveled internationally with improv as well? You said Second City in Toronto, but have you been overseas and MD'd overseas?
No. I tried to do something out in Amsterdam, but it didn't work out. So one of the people that I collaborate with frequently now is Stacy Smith, and her boyfriend are out in Boom, Chicago, in Amsterdam. So I kind of messaged her like, "Hey, I was gonna be in Europe this summer. Can I come play with you out there?" And then because she's so busy, like it kind of fizzled out, and I stopped bothering her with it. But also with the pandemic, there was no way to be stepping foot in Europe anyways. So other than that, it's been mostly just like intercontinental United States, and then just the one time in Toronto.
So you're pretty big in the festivals. Which ones would you recommend? Like worth
Um,
going to as either a performer or an audience member?
it's kind of like a loaded question because I don't want to say don't go to this festival.
Yeah.
Um, I know I will say that a lot of people I met were from the Vegas Improv Festival with Happy Hour Improv organizing it. Um, they've been doing it for about 5 years now, and surprisingly, like they bring in a lot of talent from around the country. Like some of the headliners, like they brought in like the Magic the Gathering, the Dungeons and Dragons esque team from Boston. They brought in. I was supposed to play with Wonderland, which is the house team in New York, and then I met a group. I met a lady, Trudy Carmichael, out of New York that I played. I think now 4 or 5 times since then. And that's just supporting Vegas. I know lately. I'll say this. Like I don't want to like which one's perfect, but I will say lately I did play the Gatlinburg Improv Festival, which is a small festival in Gatlinburg, and it usually pulls people from like Nashville, Knoxville, like Asheville, Tennessee, and it's in a small kind of antique vaudeville theater,
Yeah, that's sick.
and that it's
Yeah, it's
super
really
friendly. Did a Wasatch Improv Festival, which was the one of the bigger, not one of the bigger ones, but the one I was mostly heavily involved with up in Midvale, Utah, and that's actually where At Wits End, one of our headliners, is from. They're extremely funny and well groomed up there in like northern Utah. And I don't know how many people realize that.
That's pretty.
And then there's other ones like music improv like New York Musical Improv Festival, like Omaha, and like there's a bunch of other festivals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most importantly is like it's not so much like who's the best ones to recommend, but more so just going to whatever is there to support because like we're improv is a bigger community than just the one locally.
Yeah.
Have you picked up on different styles of improv that come from different cities and theaters? Is there like a stark difference in these festivals that you go to in terms of the shows that you see?
Yeah, I notice. How do I describe it? Definitely like if it's coming from a bigger city, you can tell like hard to describe. You can tell how some people know the Herald more than other teams, even if they don't play the Herald, if that makes sense. Like they know where the beats are, like they know when to wait for like a laugh
Yeah,
track esque like thing to happen,
bringing the element.
which is a little more polished. Yeah, some teams who there are some teams who are just so nice, like not nice to each other, but like they know each other so long, like they'll just mess with each other. Um, like yeah, like bros do, like Trailer Park Boys. That's like the thing I can think of
Yeah.
to
Yeah, it's like
describe it.
bar prov style improv.
Yeah, so and then some of them are like we were talking about. Some of them go more blue than others, like sexual humor, like trash talk, political stuff. Some people err on one side over the other. It really just comes down to like the locale. I know Second City in general or IO have a big part of it is like, did the instructors come from one of those two institutions and set up their theater? Like I know in Vegas, the main one that we have here, Vegas Theater Hub, all three of the all three of the original instructors came from Second City, Chicago. So they'll have that style of improv. Also, a couple from IO, so it's a little bit more grounded in that aspect. It's just it really, but you can tell like depending on like you put people in front of a stage, like how do they treat other players, and then how do they react in the back line. Like it's just little, it's kind of like little nuggets as an audience member to kind of pick up on, and then you learn from each other and what suits you or not.
Do you feel that knowing all that you know about improv and being able to identify that, does that take away from the show for you versus when you first started? So I know with me, it seemed like magic, and now I'm almost nitpicking in my head.
Uh, man. I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm more than likely both of you will probably have done improv longer than I have because I've actually only started improv like summer of 2016. Like I'm kind of still new to improv,
A
anyways.
couple months in, more than me.
But
Yeah.
right, never mind. Uh,
Me too.
I no, I think part of it is just like the mood that I'm in as I walk in because like you can't help but like you are a person, so if something happens to you before, it is sometimes difficult to like remove yourself from previous experiences just leading up to it, which kind of clouds the judgment. Sometimes it's not fair for the performer, but I will say, no, I think the magic is always there. Like you can, there's a couple things you can. Someone always told me, if you are you see something like a work of art or something gives you something or gives you an idea, you always treat it like a masterpiece first, which means like, oh my gosh, someone just told me this is like the most insane, beautiful, or funny thing in the world. Why is it that case? And then you can go ahead and decide, is that actually a masterpiece or not? So when I see improv, it's like there's a balance between like, okay, I'm gonna take this for what it is now and just like be completely open about it. And then if it's something legitimately funny, like I'll start laughing. Even if I'm performing, I'll play from the piano.
Yeah.
Like I'll just, and people have come to me after shows. They'll either say, "Oh my God, I love your laugh," or two, like like we heard your laugh from the back, and then that actually made us backstage. And I was like, okay, just because like, yeah, it's because it's a medium based off of like human error. Like why not enjoy it? So sometimes like you'll critique people's like mistakes and stuff. It's like, hey, not that supporting. It really comes down to like what are the connections that are being played on stage, and is it something like an audience can like grasp at? Because if without those two things, it doesn't matter what style improv you play. We could be like doing interpretive dance for all we know, and we'll get the same result.
Yeah. So where did you start at? You said you started in like LA.
I started in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Gosh, man, it's I googled improv, or no, I think I Facebooked improv, just like on Facebook, and then it took me to like a 2-hour workshop for like $5 on a Sunday.
That's not
And I
bad.
was like,
What?
wow, that's yeah, it was $5 workshop for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And prior to that, my friend Crystal had kept asking me and my friend Alex like to watch her improv shows, and then I was like, it goes at the same time as our church rehearsal, so I can't really do that. But then we were making exceptions of like, okay, after rehearsal we'll just zip on over to her show, catch the last half hour. So it was mostly like college kids or people who had just graduated from college in that age level, and we thought it was so fun. But the guy, we kept asking, hey, we want to learn how to do this, and he wouldn't give us a straight answer.
That sucks.
So we got really frustrated. We're good friends now. So fast track to this. This workshop was being offered by the people organizing that like show that we kind of half saw, and it was being run by two guys. One is my good friend Brett Mukai, who apparently is now like the voice of ABC Hawaii. Like he's the voice of ABC Hawaii now. That was recently. And then another guy who runs our local high school improv league, High School Jesters. So these are people who actually performed for like 10 years on the strip as improvisers in their own show under Anthony Coole's The Magician or The Hypnotist. So we were kind of fortunate, like it was a $5 workshop. But then me and my friend, because it was so cheap, we would just go on Sundays and then like kind of hang out and like learn the things. And then from there, it drew me into Vegas Theater Hub where I'm at now. And then everything kind of just took it from there. But really, it was just like someone just flashed an event. Be like, hey, come to my workshop. I'm a fun-looking guy.
Yeah.
Like you can't pass up a thing that's worth $5.
Yeah, dude, that's so cheap, dude. Like, what are they here, Brian? Like, they'll be like $50 or $100 or.
Yeah. For one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a program called 10,000 hours at IO. That's $5 for 2 hours. But the idea is that it's giving new students an opportunity to kind of mess around. It's like a jam, but there's also a new coach who's never coached before or has only coached a few times. So the idea is that both students and potential coaches get experience coaching and doing improv. So it sounds like you got the jackpot of working with actual, like, really, like, veteran teachers.
Yeah, I think one of the differences I know specifically with places like, well, actually specifically Chicago, like everyone knows, Chicago is the mecca for improv. Like, I'm sorry, LA, I'm sorry, New York, but like most diehard improvisers are coming out of Chicago. So I understand that some of the thing might be a little bit high for some people because the people teaching those or offering those opportunities, that's their livelihood, as opposed to like, at the time I was starting improv, I was also like a choir teacher at a middle school. So we actually had supplemental income. So like the money wasn't really the highlight of it. It was mostly the teaching experience. So that's why it's like, when I hear like those prices, like people are charging for stuff, like I get it just because like they have their own reasons for putting that price on it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem paying people for, their knowledge. They paid to learn it. They spent the time and, the money themselves. Yeah, $5 though. That's pretty wild. Now, I got another question for you here, since we're on the subject of like training. So if you can go back in time and talk to yourself, like beginner Faustino. Ugh, I almost messed it up again. I'm so sorry, man. I need more coffee. I'm a big piece of shit, Faustino. So you go back and talk to baby Faustino. What would you tell him, like walking into that first class? Like any advice?
That improv class?
Yeah, like anything, like leading up or like for improv in general. What advice would you tell a beginner that was in your shoes?
I wouldn't tell them anything.
Yeah.
So specifically, okay, that sounds like a weird, like, smart-ass answer, but like,
no, I mean,
part of the magic of improv is to embrace the unknown. So if you're leading on somebody, like I got yelled at by somebody for the same thing. Like, you have these expectations going into a scene where really a lot of the heart of improv is this like volatility of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So letting people just like experience it for the first time and let them decide on it is, I think, part of the reason why people do it anyways. You lead people into why this thing is so enjoyable to do in. So that's why I wouldn't really tell anybody. Like if someone's like, hey, I want to do an improv class. Like if I were to tell someone to take my workshop, I'd be like, don't worry about it. Like just have fun. Don't think of it too much. We're safe, like a safe environment. But if it was me telling myself this, that I would just not say anything, because I think part of it is like the self-discovery and then figuring it out.
Yeah. It's funny. Chris and I were just having a conversation before you hopped on, just about the different programs that we're taking. And we were talking about IO style improv and how we can't really put our finger on how to describe what it is, because, Annoyance in Chicago, it has a very like strict structure that you follow of making a small choice and playing selfishly. There's UCB. We know that you're playing game-based improv if you're going to be at UCB. IO is very general in that you come in and they teach you different exercises and different theories that you should apply to improv, but it's all up in the air, and you have to decide how you're going to harness it and take those skills and build a product. And I think that's the way it has to be. One of her favorite teachers, also, we were talking about this, is a teacher named Mary Kate, and she doesn't give direct notes. She asks questions. So she will help you come to your own conclusions through just running an exercise and kind of pushing us to discovering inside ourselves. But do you take the same approach with your MDing? Do you keep it pretty open in how you MD a show, or do you have strict rules that you follow when you
Okay. I think subliminally in my head there are some strict rules, but as I'm playing, I can't really think about anything. So like there are some tools that I can use as a music director, like one of them's chord progressions. When I started playing, I usually I'm gonna play this, I can't even hear what I'm playing. Whatever that sounded like. I used to just make my hands do this and then put them somewhere on the piano where I knew it was gonna land. For those who know, it's called triads. And I would just kind of finagle around with it. I think part of it is, okay, so I'll throw this in there. I was talking with a guy, Scott Passarella from not UCB, Comedy Sports Los Angeles is this guy. He's also the piano player for Off Book, the improvised musical.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think part of it is like it's more about why did I bring his name up? It's more so like you have to be an improviser first before a pianist first. Because what happens if you approach it as a piano player, then you're gonna like go back to all the repertoire that you learned, and then everything has to be perfect. People are trained to like take it very easy until like you do it so comfortably there's a mistake. So because of this, you cannot make a mistake. From it has to be perfect. Then a lot of piano players are scared of doing it. Whereas if you approach it as you're an improviser first, where we actually embrace the mistakes, like, oh, that something like doesn't sound bad, no problem. We can just transform it into something magical. I don't know what I just played. So when you approach it that way, it's like you have like there's still like no fear of no mistakes because all the mistakes don't even exist anymore. So for me, it's like, okay, as an improviser, what do I know is gonna sound like that's support? So if people who know me pretty well, I don't typically play like other piano players. Oh my gosh, there's a time limit. So I don't play, like I'll play chord progressions in a song, but like if it's underscoring, like especially I love cinematic music because I'm also I conduct choir and orchestra, so I'm familiar with like whatever opera and stuff. So I'll underscore things like I think I'm watching a movie, and then just kind of fill out those motives as I'm going, as opposed to some improvisers will play stock music that they may have learned in a book or like stylistically this is the case. I usually just embrace like what do I playing on the piano, how do I hear it, and then how does that emotionally support what's going on. And then if an improviser takes it in a different direction, then I have to readjust. Okay, they're going another direction as well, and then now I have to redo everything, which is fine because that's the nature of improv is we're taking our ideas and collaborating them together. So most of the time, if it's not in a song, I'm never gonna play anything stylistically unless like I'll do obvious callbacks like Les Mis and Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts stuff once in a while just because I'm just having fun with it and I'm bored. But really, it's mostly just reacting to what's going on and then knowing my language of music to kind of figure it out. By the way, I'm not a trained. I mean, I trained myself in piano. I'm actually an opera singer, so piano is secondary for me. Like it's not even my main instrument.
So you probably just crush musical improv if you're doing a set, huh?
I mean, that's what people tell me. Like I'll go off of what they said.
Dude, I'm going through the music program at IO right now, and I sing so terrible. I'm so jealous of you guys that can actually kill it.
I want to go through it too, but I can't sing at all.
It's so
okay,
fun.
let me tell you about IO. Dave Asher is, people who know Dave Asher is Dave Asher, and I respect the guy. And so many people agree with me that it was very awkward when I first met him. I think now that we've ran into each other online and then in the festivals we run into each other, like he's softened up a little bit. But I remember the first time I worked with him as a piano player, like I had to meet him as a department. And I'm like, I just got off, like, I think the plane or a train or something. And I'm like, where am I? Never met the guy before. He just said something on Facebook. But one of the exercises we had to do is sonic exploration.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people do. Like, they'll stand in the circle and they'll start making noises together.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was, or at least didn't know what the context of it. But his thing was, like, the same thing I'm telling you. Is, like, take a note. Sonically, what does that thing mean? And then can you add and then justify and then it starts going into something you might go a lot of stuff that I play, like I love Stephanie and all, but like actually a lot of it comes from Dave's approach of like this emotional connection to music and then translates into piano, translates into improv.
Yeah. Dude, I think he's probably one of the best teachers I've ever had. So it's a genius.
Do you ever have teams that kind of coach you on your MDing or teams that like to be MD'd a certain way that give you like kind of notes before the show starts? Like, I'm just curious if you have to adjust your style to certain teams.
Breaking up a little bit, but I definitely have to. So if it's a team that always has MDs before, they'll just give me directions and like, fine, I know how to do that. or I'll be like, no, I can't, but I know enough to do whatever you want. If it's a team that doesn't really have a music director, like in a smaller town, then I kind of have to like give them some options, or they're like, just do whatever you want. Like, really, you want me to do whatever I want? Like, 'cause I'll do some pretty crazy stuff. Like, I'll pimp you, or like I'll make you explode with the piano. I don't know. So it really just depends on like if the team has experience with an MD or not.
That's awesome.
It's
And a pimp would be just starting to play music to force song even prematurely, or at a point where the improviser isn't expecting it, or what would qualify a pimp?
So if someone's trained in musical improv, I'll just start playing what sounds like a song, and then they'll know like they'll start going. If they don't know, they might actually, a lot of newer improvisers might not be able to hear it. Like, they're just so absorbed in what they're talking about dialogue, they might not even hear the piano. So one of my things is like training people to kind of hear it, to like kind of have that soft focus and allow that to be part of it.
So, 2 questions here I ask everybody. What's the best advice that you've ever had? And then what was the worst advice that you've ever had? Is an improviser or a pianist?
Can you rephrase that question? Because I heard an expletive when you just said that.
Pianist.
I'm just kidding. Okay. There's so many good things and so many bad things. I can't think of bad advice right now. Can I skip that question?
Yeah, you can skip that. That's fine.
I think because like
It's a very improviser thing to do there.
Sorry, it's just that like
no, it's good. Yeah.
I think people are giving advice. They're coming from their own experience. You can't fault them if you think it's bad advice. You kind of just have to listen to what they're saying, where are they coming from with it, and kind of take it as your own. And that's a big thing. A lot of people are just like, I'm kind of dealing with that now, dealing with some of the improvisers around the world. Like, they're prejudiced against playing online, and it's like, yeah, I understand there's some things about like personal safety. It's like it's not as fun, but like really in improv sense, it's just being open to it. And then from there on, they decide if that's valuable for them or not, and that's totally okay. So that's why it's harder for me to think of bad advice. But for good advice, specific for musical improv, coming from Stephanie McCullough from Second City, is that I think people want to feel joy. People want to feel joy in improv. Actually, that's like a good number. No, stop calling me. No, I'm gonna get dealt with later. Joy, like Jay Steinman says this, my friend Ari says this, Stephanie also says this, everyone says this, is that people want to feel joy when they hear improv, specifically musical improv, because there's this added heightenedness from music. And if you can't find that as an improviser, it's tough to like convey any kind of emotion regardless to an audience, because you're not investing in yourself, or like just having that vulnerability. Like, people want to feel vulnerability on stage. Improv is a good way of doing it because it just calls for it, because of the ability to make mistakes, because it's not planned. So and that's also true with like life choices too. Like, you gotta feel joy when you're doing something, because you'll put your personal investment into it, you put your emotional investment into it, and then everyone is just happier, or at least they're more invested in what you're doing, or whatever you choose to do.
Okay, cool. So I hate to cut this conversation short because it's awesome, but Zoom just hit us with that time limit for the first time. So it didn't happen last time. But before we get going, do you want to say like any shout outs or plug anything you got going on? Or
Yeah, come to the Inner City Longform Improv Jam every Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, 9 Pacific on Zoom. If you know an improviser that's active in your community, most likely they'll have heard of it. It's free, open for everybody. If you're ever in Vegas, come visit Vegas Theater Hub, Comedy Sports, Las Vegas, Bleach's Neon Nights, or just hit me up on Facebook. Like, I love meeting new people. I love playing for new people. Like, I like the fact that piano has kind of helped me be part of the improv community at large.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. This is Faustino. I'm Chris, and then we got Brian over here in the corner. See you guys later. Sorry about the awkward ending. All right, bye.
Bye.